How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the I Chose Last Time podcast, where we talk about all kinds of whatever stuff, right? Um, I'm
Whatever stuff.
I'm here with Michael, Yo Yo,
What up, though?
Yo,
and
yo.
and Fernando. Um,
Hey.
so
So it's true. I guess I had to choose this time. Choose this time. So we decided to do a little something fun. See, now that's the best way to start is with the laugh, right?
you
There you go. I
choose me.
choose.
Choose ye.
Um, Ralph Wiggum was a Pokemon. Uh, the episode we're going to do today is actually something that's really cool because we actually got to go live on the Instagram on the I Chose Last Time Instagram, and we put it up to the people. We had a couple options and ideas of it, and the one that came out this time was sports.
Sports.
So sports.
Sports.
So the whole thing about sports was that we were going to do this episode was to have your favorite teams and why they're your favorite teams and what memories do you have with your favorite teams and also like what sports do you enjoy playing. I'm gonna start it off by asking Mike.
Mine, as you can see, is the Dodgers. Man, I bleed blue, man. That's just been my favorite team, and I grew up watching the Dodgers. For me, I I didn't grow up with a male figure essentially in my life, um, where I got taught sports. So baseball is one of those sports that my mom and my grandma really enjoyed, watching and listening to. I grew up listening to Jaime Jarrin, calling out the baseball games, and Fernando Mania, all of that, Earl Hershiser, them winning the World Series in '88. I have memory, just I remember the joy that it brought when they won that World Series, and I remember it. I remember the celebration. I remember them jumping up and down. I remember the whole thing. And ever since then, I just got hooked with the Dodgers, man. And when they won the World Series last year, oh my god, like oh my god, it happened finally, like fucking finally happened. After so many years of just fucking misery and just next year's our year, next year's our year. No, it finally fucking happened. Like it is our year, motherfuckers. Suck it. Like I have I have this video when they won the World Series last year. My wife was recording me, and I I was it was like a scream celebration, like, but at the same time I was like fucking crying because I was just so goddamn emotional that it finally happened, and just watching them celebrate, on the field, and just Clayton Kershaw finally got over the fucking hump, it's just so it brings back so many emotions for me because I just remember that feeling of just overwhelming joy, of just winning a championship. I played baseball when I was a kid, and we won the championship for the Little League, and I just equated the two together. I'm just like, man, like I won a chip as a little kid, and these people won as grown ass men, and they feel exactly the same way I felt when I won the chip. So yeah, man. When it comes to baseball and just a team overall, just the Dodgers has just they've always been there for me, man. And and the thing about baseball that I really enjoy, yeah, the players make a lot of money, a little too much, but hey, you're worth whatever someone's willing to pay you. I can literally go to the game and spend $100 on 5 tickets, versus going to the Laker game and I'm spending $125, $150 on one ticket. It's worth the ticket when you go watch the Lakers. I love watching the Lakers play in person, but when you got a family of four, it's like you got to pay for each person That's not even including the food and stuff. So to me, it's more price. Like it's the price is better for me if I watch the game live at a baseball game. Football. I've never been to a football game. So that's one expense that I've never made. Yeah. What about you, Mario? I've known you for more than half of your life, and
Oh, it's true.
I don't think that I've ever I know that you like players, but I never known you to root for like a specific team.
Because my parents and maybe my older cousins or other family members were into certain sports already and were rooting for certain teams. You kind of go with it until you figure certain things out about it, and then you call it your own, right? And so, because again, we're in LA, I grew up with the Lakers, I grew up with Dodgers, I even grew up with like the Clippers and the Kings, and what I mean, anything LA, like that's just how it was. I didn't know anything else. And it's like if you're an Angel fan but you're in LA, like you suck, you can't do that. Like, what I mean? There was that whole mentality that I just started growing up thinking that it was the wrong point of view to look at it. Um, so I want to say I started not really latching on to a team because I just I guess I didn't know how to, because it was like, well, if if I am from LA, was the rule that I had to be an LA fan, you know? And I don't think that was the case. Like, just because I'm from LA doesn't mean I have to be a Dodger fan. I have to be this, I have to be whatever. Um, but there's a lot of things that happened as I was getting older that I just started understanding the games more. So at first I couldn't really say I was a fan of any sport until I really understood how the sport worked, right? So uh, I was in little league also, and because I started getting experience in how baseball worked, I started liking baseball. And so I went to Dodger games when I was a kid, and little by little I started understanding the connection. Okay, I kind of like the Dodgers. I started to recognize the players. I started to understand, okay, that person does that, that person does that, and why they're great at doing that, versus other players that aren't so great at doing what they do. So I started latching on to those particular teams. I could call myself a Dodger fan. I just wouldn't say I'm as proficient with the roster as I used to be, you know. But I know key players. I know when I hear like the Dodgers won championships, and when I see certain stats, okay, I can see how it got up to that point, right? Just like you do any other sport. Um, but again, because I was a gamer, I played baseball games when I was a kid. I played basketball games. I played hockey games. I played all these games that made me understand the sport a little more. But I just never quite gravitated to maybe a particular team. Now, I want to say, because we grew up, watching sports when we would just go to a pizza place and there's the game and let's watch the game and hang out and all this stuff. Um, I mostly chose teams because I wanted to rival whatever you guys were kind of choosing, because it was like, well, if everybody's choosing a team, I want to choose one where I'm going to root because we're all in competition here. And I think the competitiveness becomes the fun out of watching sports, especially since we kind of know how the game works at that point. Um, but yeah, I want to say, out of sports, I like following players more than I like following teams, because I like seeing what that specific person brings to that specific team, and how it brings other team members like to their potential. I mean, you see it all the time with like whoever's proficient in the sport at the time that you're watching it. And then NBA Jam on like Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo was like my favorite game. One of my favorite games, where you just knew who was gonna have like the 3 point range, and you just knew who was gonna like get the 100% like scoring every time, and those are my favorite things. But to actually see those players really do it in real life, to get those stats to put them into a game, is what started to kind of click for me. Yeah.
Well, my end all, my one and only, the one that like will go to the grave with me is always going to be the Lakers. Like the Lakers are the the Lakers are my favorite sports team ever. Like and I
Are you
have I
sure?
like all just a little bit. Um,
The more important
it
part
really
is how. How did you become a Laker fan?
so I'm a little younger than you guys. So it's a little bit. Um, I was born at the end of the Showtime era, and so I was technically alive when the Showtime era of Magic and Kareem and Worthy and Byron Scott, everybody just that was killing everybody out in the '80s. And I was 2 when the '88 championship happened, which was the same year that they won the World Series with the Dodgers, which 2020, that was really awesome. They did the same thing. But my mom and dad got um, an audio cassette recorded that was a storybook, and you could like mail in like a voucher or something, and you would put your name or the person's name that you wanted to be recorded in, and it was a story about that was done by Chick Hearn. So and Chick would do his whole spiel. It was like slam dunk, and you would have everything, and it was like Fernando, he steals the ball running down the baseline, like it was like, and then it's like passes out to Worthy back to Fernando, slam dunk, and it's like this thing. When you're 2 years old, you're like, yeah, it's no big deal. But then as I'm growing up with it, like you have little Laker t-shirts, you have Laker hats. There's like a Laker t-shirt that had like a teddy bear on it, like it's holding up the #1 sign. And as you're a kid, these are things you just had. And then, when you get old enough to kind of start to understand little things, you start seeing this, right? My mom's company that she worked for when I was a little kid used to have Forum Club seats. So we used to go see the Lakers at the Forum. And those were not great years that we used to go see those. That was like the mid '90s, like that was like the Magic Johnson coaching era days, and when he got up to like Del Harris doing that, and then there was some ugly years in the middle, and then then night in the when I was 10, it was about '96 when I was 10 years old. Boom, you get Shaquille O'Neal. Boom, you get Kobe Bryant. Boom, you have Nick Van Exel, you have Eddie Jones, you have Elton Campbell, you have these guys that all of a sudden start putting a squad together. Okay, and then they keep getting close and they lose. They keep getting close, they lose. And then, all right, well, they got rid of the coach. Now they bring in Phil Jackson. So now you have this whole culmination. And, these are your teenage years now. This is where it's like, 2000, 99, 2000, I'm 13, 14. Now you're starting to put like, as a kid, you're like, all like, yeah, like, you're focused on this, right? This becomes like your passion. Like you start developing what you're really passionate about. And it was what I loved. And it was like to start to see the success. And, we got to go to the games. And, I've been to finals games. I've been to an all-star game. I've been to playoff games. Been lucky, and then there was this one band that just sits in the rafters at Staples Center under 308 that just, oh, that's right, it's Laker band that happens to be the part of the greatest marching band in the history of the universe, the USC Trojan Marching Band. So that was really cool, an experience to actually play in the Laker band too. That was really awesome. But there's too much of my life that intertwines the Lakers, and Kobe is my favorite player of all time. Rest in peace, Kobe. He was my favorite, and growing up, that was it. It was kids in the generations before us, we wanted to be like Mike. We wanted to be like Kobe, and like big kids wanted to be like Shaq. And it was like to have Kobe and Shaq together playing and watching those games, and the history that they made together. One of the best playoff run teams that they've ever had in the NBA. There's so much history behind it. It's hard. It definitely. I always make the joke that my championship banners keep me warm at night because the Lakers have a luxurious history. But it's hard for me not to love the Lakers and be a part of it. And I will be the banner carrier for the rest of my life until the day it's done. That purple and gold is what I will bleed.
How did you gravitate to the Lakers and not the Clippers? Since you
The
were
who?
in LA. Yeah, exactly.
The who? Of course, there's the stardom. It's you have the players, the Hall of Famers, and stuff like that. That you have the history, right? I mean, it's like no offense to the Clippers. I mean, there's a lot of legit Clipper fans out there. We know a couple of them, but
Twinsies.
yeah, the Twins, random. But it is what it's. My dad would tell me he was like, you don't worry about them. You're a Lakers fan. If you're gonna follow the Lakers, you don't worry about this. The only team you worry about as a Laker fan to talk smack back and forth with is the Boston Celtics. That's it. And it was funny because growing up, I didn't see that rivalry. I was too young for the '80s rivalry. I didn't get it. And then it was like during the '90s, there was both of the teams' franchises were bad, so they didn't really get there. Right. And then the 2000s, when the Lakers were running everything in the early 2000s, like the Celtics weren't there. And then 2008 came, and I got my first taste of the Boston Celtic Laker rivalry. It was ugly. I actually remember going to the finals games, and I remember being there, and it was just there was a lot of. First of all, LA is a huge transplant city, and there was way too much green in Staples Center that finals that I was not happy with, but that's just me.
Did you feel you were in danger when you went to see that game?
No, I felt bad for everybody else wearing Celtic jerseys, though. That's one thing. And then the Lakers lost in 2008. Then they got back to it in 2009, won, beat the Orlando Magic, and then 2010 they got it again. Classic 7-game series, and the Lakers beat the Celtics. And I don't think I've ever cried at a championship, but I know I cried at that one because that one felt good. That one, it's almost like you were indoctrinated into like the true Laker fanhood because now you got to watch your team beat your arch rivals. Like, you know what I mean? It's one of those like, yeah, all right. Now I can say, when I talk to my son about it, my son has a couple Laker jerseys, and when I can talk to my son about it, like this is the team that this is the team we battle, and this is where just like they look up to us as their competition, we look at them too, and like iron sharpens iron. You got to give respect for a franchise that won 17 championships out there, but who cares if most of them were in the 50s to 60s when Bill Russell was the only big guy that ever existed? I'm just saying, it's all good though.
It's just I know the Dodger fans get a lot of bad rep when it comes to fighting and shit, but a lot of that stuff, it's stupid fools that be fighting outside the parking lot and shit. Like, man, like get it together, like all of that's just crap. Like for us, for instance, like our biggest, I guess, rival would be San Francisco. And I've gone to games with the fans being there from San Francisco, and it's funny. You can always tell when it's when they're new fans of the other team after they've won a championship. You can always tell because they have the new jacket, they have a new hat, everything they have is fucking brand new. When I go to a Dodger, no lie, dude. When I go to a Dodger game, I typically try to wear my oldest jersey because I don't want to get my new stuff fucking dirty. Just plain simple, right. Fucking nachos and hot dogs. Like, I don't want any ketchup anywhere near my nice shit. I wear my old shit that I've been having for like years and years. But when you see those San Francisco fans after they won those chips wearing like fucking new jackets and they're wearing brand new, you could see the fucking tag sticking out of the jersey because they just bought it. Like, bro, get the fuck out of here. And they're right there like, yeah, we just won. Like, those are the dumb fucks that end up get their ass beat because they're talking too goddamn much. Go to the game, enjoy the game, root for your team, whatever, but stay out of people's faces. Like, you don't need to go and, start talking shit to the people. Man, when you think about it and you're walking down that parking lot and you got some fool with a shaved head and he got tattoos coming down his neck, why are you picking a fight with that guy? Like, I mean, I'm not saying that it's okay, but, fucking cool it down. The game finished, go to your fucking car. Just shut up. Your team won. I would never, ever, in all of my fucking life, I would never go to a Raider game as an opposing team and start talking shit to the Raider fans, ever. Because I'll know that I will literally either get stabbed or I get my ass beat going to a Raider game and doing that. I mean, you have to know your environment.
Well, that and like you, if you're into the sport of football, you have to know there's a certain reputation with certain things, you know. And you're
Exactly, that's what
going,
I'm saying.
and if you're gonna go to the home team's stadium, why provoke?
Cool it.
Why provoke?
Just cool it.
Yeah.
You know, wear your jersey, root for your team while the games, and then go to your car. That's all you got to do. You know, I will say this though: in the last few years, Dodger Stadium has gotten much safer. I don't really. I see a lot of security. It's more lit. You know, with the lights and all. And I rarely hear about people getting in fights. So you know. There's that. So, yeah, man, stop giving us a bad rep, Fernando.
I will say though, like, you know, we talk about passionate passionate fans, right? Raider fans are diehard Raider fans. They're like diehard, but I will say, the Dodger fan base is probably one of the most loyal fan bases that I've ever seen. And I worked in sports retail, and you would see the guys that were coming in buying a brand new jersey or buying a brand new hat, new jacket for other said teams who have just been winning lately, you know, or everybody jumping on a Yankee bandwagon because it's easy to be a Yankee fan. It's, you know, I saw a lot of that. And to this day, like, I lived in San Diego, and every time the Dodgers would go down and play the Padres, it was way more Dodgers fans in San Diego than it was in, you know, at Padres. One, Petco's a beautiful park, so it's really nice to get a trip south. And I know a lot of Dodger fans like to visit that stadium because it's nice, but they roll deep everywhere they go. And the thing about football also is, like, that's why there's designated sections for the visiting team. Like, you sit in your visiting section team. Because I've done that. I've been to NFL games where it's like I'm the opposing team, and I know not to talk my smack unless I'm in my group with everybody else around me to back me up.
And even then, you don't feel safe.
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
You're
It's true. I
risking
mean, I
it
did
at
that.
point.
Yeah, I think I've done that at Mile High. I've done that at Mile High, and I've done that at Qualcomm. But when Charger fans hear that, they didn't really argue back because there's not really much to argue back on. But I mean, I'm planning this. You know, in the fall, we're going to go see the Birds and the Raiders in Allegiant Stadium. So, but we're going in a designated section, so I think we'll be okay.
Before you were able to look up things on social media for sports and get the news as quickly as it comes now, I used to grab the newspaper like every other day, just so I could look at, you know, besides sports, I would look at other things. But it's so interesting to read an article of somebody who's describing what just happened the night before. And some of the writing was actually pretty good. And some of it just sounded boring, you know, but you kind of get a picture in your mind as to what was happening the night before and why it happened the way it did. Kind of the same when you're listening to sports on the radio. It's like you're picturing it in your mind or have to piece it together somehow. And we're spoiled. We're spoiled with that stuff now. You know, like you could just literally look it up, Google it, open an app. There's like TikToks now for it, YouTube. You know, there's all kinds of medias. I mean, there's all kinds of platforms that you just at a click, of an app or something like that on your phone, you're able to open that up right away and find out the news instantly.
It's not it's not like driving home. Anybody ever puts on live streaming sports in their car. That never happens. Never. Because we don't have easy access to stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember I used to read the LA Times, the sports writer. I think his name was Bill Plaschke. Yeah, man. Yeah. That guy, I would read his shit and I'm like, I'm picturing the whole fucking thing of what's going on. I remember picking up that newspaper early in the morning because if I didn't, man, that shit was gone. And and yeah, man, he's one of the favorites that I would used to read his sports section when every morning just to see what was going on in sports.
That's crazy because you even say that, like, but I remember even growing up as a kid, like my dad telling me like certain sports casters were biased to non-LA teams because they weren't originally from LA or they didn't grow up on the West Coast and they were East Coast biased, and you could hear it and how they kind of like snarky said certain things about certain players, and you'd be able to hear it. But my dad was like, you know, growing up, it was like he never liked Channel 11's sports. He never liked ABC's. He only liked Jim Hill. Like he only liked Jim Hill from CBS. That was it.
Channel 2.
Channel 2, Jim Hill. Keep the
or
faith, you know?
I used to watch Channel 9 with Rob Fukasaki, I believe
that's
his
7.
name.
That was 7.
That was 7.
No, I thought that was Channel
ABC.
9.
Yeah,
ABC was Rob
ABC.
Fukasaki.
Yeah.
Yeah, then it was that channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching that every night just to see what happened during the game.
Yeah.
You had to stay up.
Yeah, right. To hit that because sports would only get like the last like 5 minutes of the broadcast.
Right.
Yeah, and then it turned from 5 to 10 to 20. Now it's like a 30-minute piece.
Now you got Sports Central, like, you know,
yeah,
it's like
Sports Central.
Yeah. But like it's so, you know, we talked about like secondary teams, right? Like obviously like I actually grew up an Oakland A's fan with my dad because when my dad moved to the US from Brazil, my dad picked all the sports teams that had green and yellow in them. So like he was originally, he said he liked the Packers, and then he realized he didn't like the Packers. And you know, he liked the Oakland A's, and that's the one team that he stuck with out of all the other ones that he picked. He liked the Oakland A's. So I grew up liking the Oakland A's, and I didn't even know why I liked the Oakland A's at that time. But I did, and I still do. Like I still have like A's hats, although my friends will call me the worst A's fan there is because I don't know who else who's like on the active roster right now. And I'm like, baseball is like my like 4th or 5th sport. Like it's not up on my higher list. Like you know, I'll check the standings like maybe twice a week, see what's going on. You know, I have their app, I have ESPN notifications and stuff like that, so I keep up with it that way. But for me, it's my Lakers, it's my Eagles, go Birds, and you know, then it's college football, and well, it's college everything, my sports. So you know, so SC Trojans, like you know, it's like. That's it. You know, I don't follow hockey, but the second the Kings are doing well, like I catch up on everything that's going well because I want to be able to support that.
Like Fernando's, you know, topic today. What is that one team that just in your heart they're just fucking cemented there for life, you know? And for me, it's the Dodgers. That will never, ever fucking change ever, no matter what. You know, all the other sports and you know, whatever. It's just, it is what it is. You know, I love the Lakers, but they're not my team that's cemented in my heart. You know, there's not like the Dodgers. You know, I love the team, but not the way that I love my Dodgers. It's just, it's a different type of love, you know. And I will say this, I know I said that, you know, I was upset with Kobe or whatever, but when he died, it hit hard, you know, because he's kind of the reason why I started loving the sport of basketball. So I think that's why I got so upset with him when he did what he did and all of that happened. And because I think I was just more upset with his choices as far as, you know, I felt like he didn't want to really be a Laker. And to me, that, you know, when you're giving up like that just sucks. But when he passed away, I think I was the first one to text Fernando. Like, dude, is this shit real? Like, is this fucking for real?
Yeah.
You know, and then later on, you find out that, you know, he died with his daughter, and it was just like a wave of fucking emotions just hit me like a ton of bricks, you know. And at that point, it's not even about sports. It's just about a father and his daughter, and you know, being a father of a daughter. Man, I sometimes when I talk about it, I get goosebumps because I will never ever want to imagine what was going on in that fucking helicopter ever in my life. You know, I never want to be put in that situation, and to feel helpless like that, that's just, I just can't, like, so when it comes to sports, I was upset with Kobe, but as a person, I can separate the two, and rest in peace, Kobe, and Gigi. I know that Kobe did change a lot of youngsters, love of the sport, and I was one of them. I just the afro, it's everything. I fucking loved it. I loved his game and what he brought. So like I said, it was for me. It was just more of a team thing than it was a Kobe thing, and it is what it is. I get shit. I get a lot of shit, for it, especially from Fernando and our friend Oscar and my dudes from work. They always give me shit, but at the end of the day, I love the Lakers, and I still love watching them. So yeah, it is what it is.
I think to I think one of the biggest things is that like you talk about like the whole cemented once the one team you're in at the Lakers. Like it's for me, it's the Lakers, and it will always be the Lakers. And yes, Kobe was a big part of that. But it just the I think it's the tradition of the Lakers too, right? Like it's not just the one player. Like the Lakers have had hundreds of players that have come through that have been legends, and things like that. And I think just the overall connection to what the Lakers represent, who they are. You can go anywhere in the world with a Laker jersey, and everyone in the world knows what that is. Like that, it's recognizable everywhere. And I have so many memories about the Lakers, or being at a Laker game, or doing something. And the day Kobe passed away, I was working in LA, and everyone who knows me, I haven't worked in Los Angeles for years, and I was actually in LA. And that day I left work, and from my hotel I took an Uber to Staples Center. I know Staples Center like backside of my hand. Like I could go anywhere around there and know what was going on. And I can tell you, I have never felt more quiet at Staples Center than that day. Just walking around, seeing everybody, how emotional they were, but also seeing, all the positive that was coming out of it too. Like Kobe touched so many people that he never physically touched, he touched, right? He inspired generations. He inspired people to do better. The whole concept of Mamba mentality, like it's a real thing. People would push it. People use it every day. Like we talked to my friend today. Like he was like, we're talking about like, man, I got to get up earlier and go to the gym. He's like, what would Kobe do? And I'm like, don't use that against me, because then it's just gonna make me go like, you're right, but it's true. It is what it is. And I think I as agree, like as a dad, like especially a girl dad, like it sucks because there's no words. You can't imagine it, what was going on. You can't put yourself in that position because there's nothing you can do. But I think also as a fan of Kobe himself, like he had so much more that was going to happen. There was so much more that was going to change. Like I'm lucky I have all his books. It's my mom got them for my son, and we have them. We have all of his books that he wrote and was a part of. So I can't. It's just so much. But the Lakers, like there was a joke when I was a little kid, a little bit more of a morbid joke actually. But there was growing up, it was like I'd probably be buried in a Laker warm up suit. That's how important the Lakers have been to me my entire life. So
Yeah, and you kind of saw this major development in his career path all the way up to the end, where he leaves a symbolism, like you were saying, Fernando, like all over the world. I mean, we read books, we read comics, we read all this stuff. Right now I'm actually reading a manga where you open it up and the character has a jersey and it says Kobe on it. You know what I mean? It's like Bryant, and it's like, dude, it says nothing in relation to like the sport, but because you could tell it like how you're saying, it touched so many people all over the world. It inspires like that person to be integrated into other platforms, into other medias, and that's how much of a fan base he had. I was just gonna touch on. I remember eating at a restaurant and I started hearing, you know, people mumbling things here and there when they were checking their phone, and you can kind of hear like a gasping and not really understanding what was going on until I saw it on my phone when somebody texted me. And it is that like elevator feeling when like you know, you just got on this roller coaster and you went down, and it's like that stomach feeling that you know, it's you don't realize, even if you weren't a Kobe fan, or no, I'm sorry, not saying that, even if you like didn't follow him that much, you knew about him, you know, and just to hear that he just died was a major thing for the world. And so that was the feeling I got from it. And again, because I like following players, he was one of those players that I just followed because he was remarkable at the game, you know, just like you hear so many other players in their generation. You know, could say he was in the elite rank, you know. I mean, if you're playing NBA 2K and he's getting 100% on his shots, you know what I mean? Like that's a rank up there, you know what I mean, that you're being rated as this type of player. But to hear that this person went the way he went was it's just terrible. It's just again, it just gives you that sinking feeling. And then top that off, to hear that you're not going to see what else that person was able to do outside of the game, you know, is always that curiosity and that wonder of how much more could he have taken this organization, how much more can he have taken the you know, or even just bringing out new players into their primes, knowing that this elite person could bring that out in other people. um yeah, it's just terrible to hear that. Sorry, I didn't mean to damper everything, but you know,
Right?
I was
Shit.
still getting ready. I was getting ready to still say, but go. I was like, but in honor of Kobe, go Lakers, and that's why.
yeah, I
That's where
mean,
they. Because I mean, it's like you talk about inspiration, and that's what happened. I mean, look what they were able to do with the Mamba edition jerseys, right? They only lost one game in those jerseys throughout the playoffs because they told themselves we're not losing in this jersey, and they lost one game, and you know every time they said they put that on, it was to honor Kobe, honor Gigi, to honor what they did. So it speaks to the inspiration level of what was going on. And you know, I to this day, it's like, you know, Kobe, you can hate him as a person, you can love him as a player. That's your preference. Everybody has that right, but you respect him as the dad that you start to see when all the behind the scenes things coming out about him and his girls. He loved his girls, and that's one thing you can take away and know that, you know, that was a big part. And so if you can understand as a parent and as a, you know, that's what you really judge them at, is what they, as the love that they had. So, you know, we miss Kobe, but you know, thank you for everything that you gave us fans to cheer and boo about.
I'm excited to see and what new players rise for the future, you know, because we are in our, you know, I'll call it out there, we're in our mid 30s here, and we've seen so many greats behind us in our past, and
Closer to 40.
and we'll see what we see moving forward.
You guys are closer to 40.
Can you still
Yeah.
run back and forth in full court? That's something on another podcast we'll settle.
Maybe like
I'll try. I might not look nice doing it, but I'm gonna try.
You didn't say how fast we had to do it.
Right?
That's true. That's true. I before we end, I just wanted to say that I started watching on HBO Max the Inside Story, and it's the I don't know if you guys have seen the actual episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I'm on episode 2 right now, but if you guys don't know what that is, there's a show called Inside the NBA where you know, it's Ernie, Kenny, Charles, and Shaquille O'Neal,
Jack,
and they're they talk about sports. Essentially, what it was is to originally talk about, you know, sports, but it's the history of how it ended up spanning to the show it is today. And a lot of trial and error as how it got there. But if you love basketball, I highly recommend watching it. It's a really interesting story as how it all kind of played into it. And if you know basketball well enough, you can kind of see those historical points as to getting up to the point that we are today. So we'll conclude here. Fernando's got the Laker love. Michael's got the Dodger love. And I got players love. Okay.
The Players Club.
I didn't know how to end that. Since I didn't have a team.
That was perfect.
Anyway, well, thanks you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the sports edition of the I Chose Last Time podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Chips are coming.
Yeah.